Hi, everyone. We're here with Joanne Thomson, the amazing Outlander new member of cast and playing McCallum in Outlander Season 6. And welcome, Joanne. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, McCallum, what can you tease about her? We just met her. We've seen the first episode, the first 2 episodes, and we loved your performance as McCallum. It is a very kind character, a very warm person in general, and we can't wait to see more of that. What can you tease about this character?
So I think the main thing for all the new settlers on the Ridge is, going somewhere, going a new place like that. There's this real sense of hope and possibility with what that new place can bring. But I think for Amy, it kind of all gets dashed because her husband dies on the journey over. So she's finds herself in this new place where she knows no one. She's got 2 young kids to look after and no one to help her. And I think a huge thread that runs through the entire series of what it was like for women back then, and you needed a husband, not like now, because like Cher says, men are like dessert. But then you really needed a man. So obviously we see in that first episode that Roger and Bree kind of take her under their wing and try and help her. But Bree's, in terms of where it goes, I don't want to say too much, obviously, but Bree's busy inventing stuff because she's badass and she's good at that. So it just ends up being Roger to help her with her chimneys and her brickwork and just general help around the house. And that's all I'll say.
Great. And we can't wait to see more of her. And we will see in the second episode. We saw some sneak peeks, and so that there will be a beautiful scene between Roger and Amy talking about faith and how will faith help in difficult situations. And we can't wait to see more. So, and how did you react when you first got the role, and after the audition when you got casted? And such.
This was my first job in 3 years. Obviously, we went through a pandemic, and I'd been taking a bit of a break. Honestly, I was sort of considering quitting acting. It's just it's a really tough career. But and I'd started writing instead. To have got this job after all of that, it really meant a lot. And I was over the moon when I got it. But I will say, though, at the time I had a flatmate from Texas called Shania Moore. Hi, Shania. And she's a huge Outlander fan. I think one of the first things she asked me was, have you auditioned for Outlander? And I was like, yes, 3 times, and I have not got it yet. So it was 4th time lucky for me. But I was ecstatic. She was the one on the kitchen floor, though, I'm gonna say. But and then obviously I'd kind of watched it again and watched the whole way through, and she was getting so much joy watching me watch it. And obviously it was nice because I was a bit biased that time round, because it's like, oh my God, I'm going to be in this thing. So that was really nice. And then I think in terms of approaching that character and stuff and finding the right way to portray her, I'd mentioned to you that this was probably my biggest role, but I'd done a short, other shorter BBC ITV things, and things were quite big here. There'd been brilliant productions, it all either won or been nominated for BAFTAs, so there were really, really good productions to be a part of. But this was definitely the longest running thing, that's got an existing fan base and things. So it was a lot of pressure. And obviously doing it during a pandemic. But I'm a total geek. I watched the full series and read book 6. I've not read any other books, but I did read book 6. And it was great. And also, because I didn't have the scripts till for a little while. So it was nice to kind of fill my time with reading. You know, I didn't want to go in blind, and I knew that obviously it's got such a huge fan base for the books that I was like, I want to have a bit of an idea. I mean, they do say that they're like, you know, they're a bit like my eyebrows. They're not twins, they're sisters. But like, yeah, they're very, you know, they have to change. Of course, it's two completely different mediums. And also the books are like Bibles. You could use them as a weapon, I'm sure you know. But yeah, so it was nice to get a bit of like dip into the world of this new character and stuff and see. And I tried to learn Gaelic as well, which is very difficult. I don't know if you've ever tried to learn Gaelic, but
I've tried a few times, but it's really difficult.
Yeah, it's so counterintuitive. Like things like, I'll say this wrong probably, but like big means small, and coo, which you'd assume is a cow, is dog. Things like that. I'm just like, okay, that makes no sense whatsoever. But yeah, so just lots of different things like that. Immerse myself in the world.
It would definitely be a remarkable and unforgettable experience, I think, for you. This joining this family, like the cast and the whole fandom and the series as well. So in fact, as you said, deepening your knowledge of the role helped you to better portray it, to better portray the role of Amy. And it was we were here really happy. I'm a huge Outlander fan, and I've read all the books. And when I first saw you, I thought exactly that. Wow, she's like what I imagined her, Amy McCallum, to be. So I think that your work has really succeeded.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think it's just like she's very, you know, genteel and quite. I mean, I'm not shy at all, but and shy. But like, yeah, if you were to if anyone was to put themselves in that situation, it's quite it becomes quite an easy thing to portray actually, and her being you in that world and me being you on that set, like that scene with Roger on the stairs, like, you know, when he offers to build her a cabin in episode 1. Sorry, that's a spoiler. But yeah, it's that was my first scene. That was the first time I met Richard. So it was like there wasn't a lot of acting, but like I was stressed. I was like, yeah. So it kind of, I think it all came into play.
And as you mentioned, did you see something of yourself in the character in Amy, or you are completely two different people?
No, I definitely see something of myself and her. I mean, I think generally in TV especially, you do tend to get cast, you know, quite close to yourself. And I think I don't know, I think in lots of ways I don't know, that sort of sense of, I am obviously Scottish and I have a real, you know, I'm calling from Glasgow right now, I'm from Glasgow, like I've got a real connection to home and stuff. And I think that was really easy to call upon because, you know, when I've lived in America on and off, like, you know, for months at a time here and there. And like I do miss home and stuff. And I think it's like a really easy, Scotland's a great place. So you need to come on. But yeah, Scotland's a great place and it's easy to kind of, I think that's kind of what her and Roger having, well, anyone there, I suppose, but specifically that connection to Scotland. And it's like a little taste of heart that's, you know, come back, which is nice.
Yeah, but the Scottish culture as well, it is such a strong culture and a passionate culture that I really understand how when you say that you really miss home when you go to another country.
I do like the sun though. When I've been in LA or whatever, that's the one I would say that's the one thing that Scotland does not have. There's a running joke in Scotland that's like, when was summer last year? It's like, I think it was a Tuesday. Yeah. But you know, when we do get sun, everyone is out, which is really nice because it's just like, okay, we don't know when it's going to leave. I
totally agree because in my town in particular, it is very much like Scotland because it rains
Oh, really?
like every day, and when the sun is out, everyone is out. And in fact, I talked to a Scottish immigrant in my country, and he said to me, well, like, it isn't, I can't really say that I miss Scotland because it is very much like Scotland here because of the weather and such. So I totally agree when you say that when you love the sun when you go to LA.
Yeah, it's the one thing that I'm like, yeah, fair enough.
Okay, so another thing that we were asking ourselves about your work in Outlander, it is like, what's been the most challenging feature or like a scene or a storyline that challenged you in portraying Amy and her story?
I mean, well, like, they tell you not to work with children or animals, and my scenes included both children and animals. But yeah, Caleb, that plays my son Aidan McCallum, he's brilliant, and he did so well. This was his first ever job, in fact, first ever time acting. But yeah, I got to say, that first day in that scene, with Roger, like the hog roast, it was tricky because he was, it had been, a while since I'd been on set, all of the, COVID protocols and everything. And it's just, it's really tricky when you've been out of it for a while to really focus and try and block out all of the noise that's going on and all of the things that other people are focusing on. And, yeah, there was a point where he looked how I felt, and like just trying to, if he was asking a question, I just so badly wanted to be able to answer. I'm like, I don't know, buddy, I don't know. But yeah, I think Alex Vlahos was on that day as well, and he was great because that was the first time I'd met him as well, and I think he'd been on a couple of days already. So it's just, I think everybody just tries to help each other out because it is this like, massive machine almost, but so it's hard to kind of when you're starting out to feel like you belong there, I suppose. So yeah, that was probably really challenging. And yeah, I think on the whole, it's hard not to put too much pressure on yourself, because obviously, to be fair, like the leads in this show, it's like even then, this is the biggest thing. I think most of them, Sam and even Kat, like this is the biggest thing that they had done when they did it. So I think everybody ultimately can put themselves in your shoes, and I think that's why I think it speaks to why they're so welcoming and lovely on set and things, because they get it. But yeah, it's really hard to try and lose that feeling of when you're meeting a whole bunch of strangers and then you've got to act like it's hard to lose that feeling of still auditioning.
I was reading an interview to Alex Vlahos recently, and he says that joining the Outlander cast was like the first day of school when you have a whole bunch of new people that you never knew or you knew by name, and you just have to be welcomed by them. So I think that the feeling is this: the when you start school and you never know anyone.
Completely. And I think it's really easy to look up to, other people and think that they're cool and they've got their shit. But like, it's a really lovely reminder, like hearing people like Alex and people speak about that and be really honest about that. I'm not here for the whole, it was totally cool, man. I was like, it was grand. Because I'm like, no, you're not. Just don't. I mean, it's a tricky thing to turn on and make happen. But everybody pulled together. And obviously, we all had masks on. We had to keep our masks on for, until the first rehearsal and things. So you're like trying to smile behind your mask and make friends when you it was definitely tricky. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I think that was the most tricky thing about shooting during the pandemic. Because
I mean, we were just grateful
you can't really bond with the other cast members. And I don't know how was it, but how can you describe this experience of shooting season 6 during pandemic and with the other cast members? How can you describe
I mean, it was nice. It was nice to be able to, because that was, I mean, we went from, I think my first scenes were in January, which hence the snow, because that was real life snow. We were getting like ridiculous snowstorms and stuff. So between that and the pandemic, the crew, this is like the hardest working crew in the world. Like they do such a good job of just, I mean, because we've got like at least little tents with heaters and stuff, and they're just like absolutely, they just, yeah, I mean, they work incredibly hard. But yeah, it was, I mean, you're getting like sticks shoved up your nose at like 4 o'clock in the morning in your trailer and stuff, because you had to get tested every day. But they did such a good job of like, they basically built like a lab on site, like at the studio, and to keep everyone as safe as possible. They put so much thought and work into it, and you know, it paid off, because I think on the whole things ran pretty smoothly, and you know, we were safe. But it was like, I think one of the first scenes we did was coming out of the big house, and we were all huddled in this little space coming out of that set, and we're like, oh my, because eventually we were not masked obviously, and we're like, oh my god, it's like being in a club. Like it felt like we were at a nightclub, because we were like touching shoulders with people that we just met, and yeah, it was all very exciting. But yeah, it was very surreal. But yeah, I mean, we were thankful to be working. Obviously, I had friends in theatre. I've mainly got a background in theatre, and all my friends' shows were cancelled, and yeah, and whole industry was just on that complete brink. So it was so nice. I felt really fortunate to be doing something that was allowed to happen.
Yeah, definitely. And are there some of the cast members you grew a strong friendship with?
Yeah, well, obviously there was, it was hard. We couldn't socialize.
Yeah.
But like really, yeah, it was tough, especially even in the winter, because you know, we were only allowed to be outside if you were socializing, and it was just absolutely miserable. But yeah, I mean, everybody was really welcoming. Sam and Katrina are the loveliest people on the planet, and I don't know, like they've managed to sustain a smile through everything that was going on. And like, you know, they have new actors coming and going all the time, and they were just so nice. Like I said, I got on really well with Alex, and Caitlin that plays Lizzie as well. She invited, when we got to like nearer into the summer, she invited me out for a wee picnic, which was nice of her, because obviously it was just hard to, you know, feel like you were a normal human being. And Jess as well, Jessica Reynolds that plays Malva, she's so lovely. She actually went to the same drama school that I had gone to do a foundation degree, so we had that in common. We both lived in Liverpool and things, so yeah, that was lovely.
Great. And it is very lovely to hear you all actors bonding and such. You're like a big family after spending like 6 months. I don't know how long the filming goes, but
yeah, I mean,
after spending so much time together, I think you're like a family. And
yeah, I mean,
it is beautiful.
I was, you know, in and out here and there, but they have such a strong bond together. You know, the ones that are like on it all the time, like and it's just so lovely to see them, like, you know, supporting each other's shows and stuff, you know, when they're doing things. And yeah, they seem like, yeah, a great friendship group. It's lovely.
And it was really beautiful to see you as well at the premiere and at other events with the other cast members.
Yeah, I was really surprised. That was our first ever like big red carpet thing, so very, very new to it all. And people shouting your name and stuff, it was wild.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And so, Busy, have you got any questions for Jan?
Yes. This is joking, but tell us something that I'm sure many of our readers want to know. What's the hardest play action with kids or Richard ranking?
What's the hardest? Say that again.
I'm joking. With kids or Richard ranking?
Oh,
Play
what's the hardest to play with kids or with Richard Rankin? Richard Rankin is a kid, so I guess that's one and the same. But yeah, definitely Richard is a joker, that's for sure. But that's why we love him, isn't it? So yeah.
In fact, that's why us and all our fans and the other Outlander fans all around the world wanted to know that, because we know that he's a big giggler and a joker, and we love him because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think at first it was tricky because we did a table a Zoom like table read together, but you don't get much time to chat. Obviously, usually they would be in the room together, and then you'd be able to kind of get to know people and things. So we never got a lot of time together before our biggest scene. So that was a bit tough to like lay any groundwork or anything. But although we don't shoot in sequence, we do shoot the earlier blocks first generally. So like I said, those first scenes with us, we were basically strangers. So that was pretty easy. But I mean, I remember in terms of like how we got into it, I remember we had to do quite a tricky scene with Richard that I won't spoil, but basically he had to give a speech to basically a room full of people, but because of COVID they took all the people out and it was basically just me there. And he did a really good job at it, because it was like he had to fake looking at all these people in the eye and stuff. And I just went up to him after, because we hadn't done our scenes together, and I just went up to him afterwards and was like, you killed that. And I know there's a lot of people that don't need that kind of reinforcement or whatever, and I'm sure he's one of them, but I don't know, who doesn't like to be told that they did a good job? So it was just like, and it broke the ice as well. And then the next day we had another scene together. So it felt like, we kind of broke the ice. And I think he's got very similar banter to me, Richard. So I think we got along really well.
Yeah. As far as we saw, for the scenes that we saw in the first 2 episodes, you were killing it with each other in the scene together.
Yes.
Thank you. That's kind of you to say.
And how was it like to play with him? And how did you two build the relationship between Amy and Roger for Outlander season 6?
I feel like I've answered that, but I think, I mean, like I said, we're both from, I think he's from Glasgow. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's from Glasgow. So I did genuinely feel like if I was in that position and it felt like if we weren't our characters, we probably would have got along well, which is obviously, and Roger and Amy get along really well. And I think it is that little taste of home, I think. And I think anyone can kind of identify with that. So I think it was pretty easy to slip into.
Yeah.
Yes.
And talking about scenes in particular, broadly speaking, can you tease 2 scenes, one that was most challenging and one that was most fun to shoot?
There's a really lovely scene later on of them sort of reminiscing about home back in Scotland, and I do think that's what this show does really well. Like even like in the first seasons with like Lallybroch and things, like even if you're from Italy or whatever, you can sense this real idea of home and when you're away from home. And I think that was a really lovely scene. There's also quite a fun scene with an animal that I won't go into too much detail about, but that was a lot of fun. That was a weird.
We know that on Outlander, the most fun scenes are those with animals and with Richard and with kids. They're a gem. The kids on Outlander are a true gem.
Yeah. Oh my God, they're so great. I think I only because of COVID as well, there was so many little changes and things that had to be made to just kind of minimize who was on set when and things like that. So, usually you'd sort of be able to, might cross paths with people, but they had to be really careful with that. So the only kid that I met was my son and my baby. My baby and in fact, there's a couple of fisher folk, other little boys and stuff, and they were really great. They get up to quite a lot of mischief, which is a nice little storyline.
Beautiful. And what can I say? If a question that we usually ask all the people we're interviewing is that if you can choose any other character on Outlander that you maybe you see yourself in it, or maybe just because it would be more fun to play, who would you play?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. Definitely someone that rides a horse. Rides horses. Maybe someone in France in that season because the costumes were so good. Lizzie would be fun to play in this season because she gets up to some trigger business.
Yes, definitely.
I mean, I'd like to play Ian for the dot for Rollo and the bows and arrows and just generally being really, really cool. I'd like to play Claire because Jamie, obviously. But genuinely, Jenny Fraser, Jamie's sister. That's I'd probably love to play. She is such a badass. I mean, yeah, Laura Donnelly completely nails her. I would never come close, but it's such a good character. I just love how she just.
We really miss Jenny. We hope she may come back.
I know. God, Laura Donnelly's so busy now. But yes, such a good character.
Definitely good answer. An amazing answer. And throwing back instead of your to your previous acting experiences, what's the role that you're most fond of, or the project in general? And instead, what's the role that you recognize it helps you grow professionally, so it's been more challenging or such?
I played a real life suffragette called Mary Lee in a BBC show, which ended up winning a BAFTA, which was very unexpected and wonderful, very well deserved because they did such a good job. But yeah, all the women that worked on that, it was like a majority female crew, and it was just an absolute joy, like to play like a real person from history, because she was the first woman that was force fed in the fight. So it really meant a lot. Like I remember I auditioned for it on the 100-year anniversary of some women getting the vote, and I remember I dressed up pretty much as a suffragette for the audition, and I walked across London. I was just like, yeah, it was such a good role. But in terms of the most challenging, I just finished playing the lead in a play at the Royal Exchange in Manchester called The Strange Undoing of Prudencia Hart by David Gregg, which is a wonderful play. If you've ever read it, you should. If you've never read it. And I mean, that was like so physical, so full on. The whole thing was in verse. It was extremely verbose, and it was just like an absolute, it was a giant challenge. But doing theatre during COVID is my biggest challenge to date, because it was just so hard to it's anxiety inducing at the best of times, but having every week something in the fan, and then people testing positive and having to rejig the show, and it was so hard, and the cast and the crew pulled together amazingly well on that, but it just seemed like it was crumbling, but we managed to get to the end of it, and I'm really proud of that. But it was very challenging. It
was like a roller coaster, I think.
Completely. And just when you thought you were settled, my friend in the cast, Oliver, he would say, like, there was one night he just got a glass of Prosecco and he put it to his lips because he was like, it's a Sunday, nothing's happened this week, no one's got COVID, everything's great, and he just literally put the glass to his lip, and we got a text that someone had COVID, and we were like, every single week. Despite our best efforts, it's out there. Pandemic isn't over just because you're over it.
Okay, so Lizzie, if you can tell her our last question, we can finish the interview.
with the 2 questions we made to every actors or actress we interview. How did your passion for acting come about? Was it something you have always dreamed of, or when you were younger, would you have liked to do something else?
I've always wanted to do this, which is quite a boring answer, but I got into it because I was really badly bullied at school. Initially by a teacher, actually, and I lost like all of my self-confidence, and someone recommended to my mum that she enrolled me in acting classes. So I went to an acting class at Scottish Opera. I mean, I'd been dancing, I've done like ballet, tap and jazz, like since I was like 3, so I've always been like, I guess, a performer, but that was my first acting class. And then again, all through not all through high school, but a good chunk of high school, I was really badly bullied. And that was like, acting was completely my lifeline, genuinely. So it was a bit of an escape for sure.
Thank you. And if you can give an advice to some of our readers or people that are listening right now who wants to pursue a career in acting, which one would you give them? I'm
going to give quite a realistic answer, which is, I think, helpful. But yeah, I think the best advice is to be prepared that there's very much 2 sides of an acting career. So if you're chasing fame or whatever, that's a completely different thing. But if you're wanting to be an actor, there's one side that is learning lines and auditioning and putting yourself on tape and cancelling plans and traveling the country to consistently try and prove yourself to people that you don't know that you can do your job. And sometimes that goes on for months in my case, and most of the people I know's cases, it can go on for years. And if the thought of that destroys your confidence, then going through it will probably do worse. So if there's anything else that you're interested in, explore that. I'm not saying definitely do that, but it is a really tough career unless you get famous right away. And I personally don't know if I would ever really want to be famous, but like unless you hit the ground running, you're getting offers left and right. That is the reality of it. So you really need to genuinely love the job and love the craft, because sometimes you spend so little time actually acting, which is the worst thing about this career. But yeah, I mean, watch theatre, watch films, read plays. I wouldn't be an actor if it wasn't for the help of, from a working class background, and for the help of like schemes and things. So there is things on offer, like especially now when things are like international. A lot of the classes are on Zoom and stuff. So like really take advantage of that if you can. And explore any sort of scholarship options or funding options that you can. I mean, it took me 4 years to get into drama school. It took me 4 tries and 4 auditions for separate characters to get this job. Like it's definitely a long game. Yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint, for sure. But yeah, if that's what you want to do, get a good support team around you, and yeah, give it a bloody good go, because it is brilliant. I'm not going to lie. When it goes well, that's great.
Thank you so much, Joanne.
Thank you
for your time and for joining us. And Outlander season 6 airs Sundays on Stars and Stars Play. Hemi McCallum will be back soon. And thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you.
Thank you.